Thank you for visiting the Only You podcast. This is your host, Lo Jackson, where I like to do my podcast live just for the fact that this is really me. These are really things that go on, and we all face adversity in certain situations where we don't know what to do. And I want to give you an outlet where maybe I might say something that might spark your interest. It might make you want to go out there and do a little research, figure out things that are going on inside of yourselves or outside of yourselves or going on with your kids. A lot's gone on since COVID had emerged into the world, and all of our systems and circumstances were all changed and altered. And, the American Psychological Association has put out a study, 14 emerging trends since the pandemic era changed attitudes towards science and mental health. In 2022, psychological science will play an increasingly outsized role in the debate about how to solve the world's most intractable challenges. Human behavior is at the heart of many of the biggest issues with which we grapple: inequality, climate change, the future of work, health and well-being, vaccine hesitancy, and misinformation. Psychologists have been asked not only to have a seat at the table, but to take the lead on these issues and more. Psychologists are being called upon to promote equity, diversity, and inclusion amid a nationwide reckoning on race and a 71% increase in EDI roles at organizations over the past 5 years. Psychologists are increasingly being taped to serve as chief diversity officers and act in similar roles, but the field is also at an inflection point, being called upon to be more introspective about its own diversity in terms of the people who choose to become psychologists, the people who are the subjects of psychological research, and the people who have access to psychological services. Psychologists are now the most requested experts by mainstream media, as our culture increasingly sees mental health as an important piece of the overall well-being. Psychologists are being called to serve in a wider array of roles, including entertainment, sports, advocacy, and technology. And I want to tell you what the 14 emerging trends are. One is the rise of psychologists or psychological experts in demand everywhere. And I have had conversations with friends of mine, and we believe that the fix for law enforcement in America is not body cams, but actually having a trained psychological police professional on hand with a trained detective or, a regular on-the-beat trained police officer. That a counselor with a police officer would equal more understanding and less pretty much backlash and craziness that goes on with the police force in America today. But anyways, the second one on the 14 emerging trends were reworking work. Industrial and organizational psychologists are helping employers and employees navigate as COVID-19 reshapes the world of work. Third is open science is surging. So open science is becoming the norm in psychology, a trend spurred on COVID-19 pandemic's back, pretty much. And the fourth one is prominent issues in healthcare, how psychologists are working for positive change in those areas. The next one is mental health meet venture capital. Private equity firms are funneling unprecedented funds into mental health apps and related interventions. How will this trend affect mental health care and the field? Well, I believe that the more outlets there are for any type of issue, whether it be, a splinter in your finger or an onset of bipolarism or, just things that I think that this would definitely help in all those areas, all those things that we struggle with and that we know people that struggle with those things. The next one is kicking stigma to the curb. Celebrities publicly attending to their mental health struggles may liberate others to do the same. And I find that to be true, that when somebody that you look up to exposes themselves and their weaknesses and their flaws, other people are, that are following them are quickly to follow suit, I believe. The next one is New Frontiers in Neuroscience. I love this one. Research discoveries about the biological underpinnings of human behavior are helping psychologists find new ways to improve people's lives. And the next one is Millions of women have left the workforce. Psychology can help bring them back. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed millions of women out of the workforce, but psychology can help. And, well, that's because, I believe that the pandemic sparked all kinds of different types of anxieties, fears, and oppressions that we just didn't see coming, and we didn't think were possible. We thought we were over all that stuff and that we were elite and that we could figure any type of cure for any kind of disease. I think that Hollywood and the television has warped our perception of reality. The next one is Children's mental health is in crisis. As pandemic stressors continue, kids' mental health needs to be addressed in schools. And we've seen that throughout history and over time that there's being more and more focus on our kids just for the fact that, as a child, those are our most developmental years. And that's when we, as humans, need each other the most, is when we're young. The next one is burnout and stress are everywhere. Burnout and stress are at all-time highs across professions, and among already strained healthcare workers, they are exasperated by the politicization of mask wearing and other unrelenting stressors. And we have all felt those stressors since the pandemic. The next one is climate change intensifies. Psychologists are learning how to bolster the health of humans and environment as the planet warms. And, that's a huge worry for a lot of people is, global warming and greenhouse gases and stuff like that. The next one is big data ups its reach. More and more psychologists are incorporating big data techniques into research and related business ventures. The next one is psychology's influence on public health messaging is growing. Psychologists are playing increasing vital roles in medical and public health settings. So they're putting more ads out there that are more psychological based to let you know that there are services in your area to help you if you know anybody or you yourself are struggling with mental illness. And sometimes a lot of people don't even know that they're mentally ill. And that's sad. The next one is telehealth proves its worth. Psychologists are seeing the benefits of telehealth and hoping payers continue to support it, in which I think they will. And this is the Only You podcast, and today I am going to be doing a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. I just wanted to share that little tidbit of the 14 trends in psychology that are coming about because I feel like it's important because I do so many different self-help books, psychological books, and everyone's feeling the wrath of the pandemic and the onset of how the pandemic has made us all have certain types of struggles. And we really have realized and woke up finally for once and realized how important mental health is and how many people seriously struggle with it. But today I'm doing The Richest Man in Babylon, The Success Secret of the Ancients by George S. Clason. It was first published in March of 2018. And you can find this book. I found it for actually 99 cents on Google Play. I always get all my books there, you guys, I hope that you guys will run right out and get this book. It's one of the greatest reads out there. Literally this book is pretty much the basics about money. Honestly. And a lot of us don't even understand the concepts of money. We just know that we're supposed to have a job and fit into the system and make things happen and be a man or be a strong woman. You know what I mean? So it's like 10 personal finance lessons is what The Richest Man in Babylon is about. Pay yourself first by saving 10% of your annual earnings. Spend within your means. Make your investments work for you long term to accumulate wealth. Pitfalls of investment is overconfidence. Owning your primary home is a good investment. Well, we all know that, or at least I hope you do. Retirement savings and insurance. The next one is invest in yourself. The next one is invest in what you know or seek smart advice. A lesson in borrowing and lending from the gold lender. And 10 is budget rule 10-70-20. And 10-70-20 is actually a pretty good way to budget your bills. I mean, 70% of your income goes towards your bills every month and your expenditures, and then 20 goes towards savings, and 10% goes towards debt or donations. And that's the basics of this book by George Samuel Clason. He was born in Louisiana, Missouri on November 7th, 1874. He attended the University of Nebraska and served in the United States Army during the Spanish-American War. This is the Only You podcast. This is your boy, Lo Jackson. Thank you for following me, you guys. And right now I'm doing The Richest Man in Babylon. Beginning a long career in publishing, he founded the Clason Map Company of Denver, Colorado, and published the first road atlas of the United States and Canada. In 1926, he issued the first of famous series of pamphlets on thrift and financial success. Using parables set in ancient Babylon to make each of his points, these were distributed in large quantities by banks and insurance companies and became familiar to millions, the most famous being The Richest Man in Babylon, the parable from which the present volume takes its title. These Babylonians parables have become a modern inspirational classic. Ahead of you stretches your future like a road leading into the distance. Along that road are ambitious things that you wish to accomplish, desires you wish to gratify. To bring your ambitions and desires to fulfillment, you must be successful with money. Use the financial principles made clear in the pages which follow. Let them guide you away from the stringencies of a lean purse to that fuller, happier life a full purse makes possible. Like a law of gravity, they are universal and unchanging. May they prove for you, as they have proven to so many others, a sure key to a fat purse, larger bank balances, and gratifyingly financial progress. Low money is plentiful for those who understand the simple rules of its acquisitions. 1. Start thy purse to fatten. 2. Control thy expenditures. 3. Make thy gold multiply. 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. 5. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. 6. Ensure a future income. 7. Increase thy ability to earn. The Richest Man in Babylon. Our prosperity as a nation depends upon the personal financial prosperity of each of us as individuals. This book deals with the personal successes of each of us. Success means accomplishments as the result of our own efforts and abilities. Proper preparation is the key to our success. Our acts can be no wiser than our thoughts. Our thinking can be no wiser than our understanding. The Book of Cures for Lean Purses has been termed a guide to financial understanding. That indeed its purpose to offer those who are ambitious for financial success an insight which will aid them to acquire money, to keep money, and to make their surpluses earn more money. In the pages which follow, we are taken back to Babylon, the cradle in which was nurtured the basic principles of finance, now recognized and used the world over. To new readers, the author is happy to extend the wish that its pages may contain for them the same inspiration for growing bank accounts, greater financial success, and the solutions of difficult personal financial problems so enthusiastically reported by readers from coast to coast. To the business executives who have distributed these tales in such generous quantities to friends, relatives, employees, and associates, the author takes this opportunity to express his gratitude. No endorsement could be higher than that of a practical man who appreciates its teachings because they, themselves, have worked up to important successes by applying the very principles it advocates. Babylon became the wealthiest city of the ancient world because of its citizens were the richest of their time. They appreciated the value of money. They practiced sound financial principles in acquiring money, keeping money, and making their money earn more money. They provided for themselves what we all desire, incomes for the future. An historical sketch of Babylon. In the pages of history, there lives no city more glamorous than Babylon. Its very name conjures visions of wealth and splendor. Its treasures of gold and jewels were fabulous. One natural pictures such a wealthy city as located in a suitable setting of tropical luxury, surrounded by rich natural resources of forest and mines. Such was not the case. It was located beside the Euphrates River in a flat, arid valley. It had no forests, no mines, not even stone for building. It was not even located upon a natural trade route. The rainfall was insufficient to raise crops. Babylon is an outstanding example of man's ability to achieve great objectives using whatever means are at his disposal. All of the resources supporting this large city were man-developed. All of its riches were man-made. Babylon possessed just two natural resources, a fertile soil and water and the river. With one of the greatest engineering accomplishments of this or any other day, Babylonian engineers diverted the waters from the river by means of dams and immense irrigation canals. Far out across the arid valley went these canals to pour the life-giving waters over the fertile soil. This ranks among the first engineering feats known to history. Such abundant crops as were the reward of this irrigation system the world had ever seen. Fortunately, during its long existence, Babylon ruled by successive lines of kings to whom conquest and plunder were but incidental. While it engaged in many wars, most of these were local or defensive against ambitious conquerors from other countries who conveyed the fabulous treasures of Babylon. The outstanding rulers of Babylon lived in history because of their wisdom, enterprise, and justice. Babylon produced no strutting monarchs who sought to conquer the known world that all nations might pay homage to their egotism. As a city, Babylon existed no more than those energizing human forces that built and maintained the city for thousands of years were withdrawn. It soon became a deserted ruin. The site of the city is in Asia, about 600 miles east of the Suez Canal, just north of the Persian Gulf. The latitude is about 30 degrees above the equator, practically the same as that of Yuma, Arizona. It possessed a climate similar to that of this American city, hot and dry. Today, the valley of the Euphrates, once a populous irrigated farming district, is again a windswept arid waste. Scant grass and desert shrubs strive for existence against the wind-blown sands. Gone are the futile fields, the mammoth cities, and long caravans of rich merchandise. Nomadic bands of Arabs securing a scant living by trending small herds are the only inhabitants. Such it has been since about the beginning of the Christian era. Dotting this valley are earthen hills. For centuries, they were considered by travelers to be nothing else. The attention of archaeologists were finally attracted to them because of broken pieces of pottery and brick washed down by the occasional rainstorms. Expeditions financed by European and American museums were sent here to excavate and see what could be found. Picks and shovels soon proved these hills to be ancient cities. City graves, they might well be called. Babylon was one of these. Over it for something like 20 years, The winds had scattered the desert dust, built originally by brick. All exposed walls had disintegrated and gone back to earth once more. Such in Babylon, the wealthy city today, a heap of dirt so long abandoned that no living person even knew its name until it was discovered by carefully removing the refuse of centuries from the streets and the fallen wreckage of its noble temples and palaces. Many scientists consider the civilization of Babylon and other cities in this valley to be the oldest of which there is a definite record. Positive dates have been proved, reaching back 8,000 years. An interesting fact is this connection is the means used to determine these dates. Uncovered in the ruins of Babylon were descriptions of the eclipse of the sun. Modern astronomers readily computed the time when such as an eclipse visible in Babylon occurred, and thus established a known relationship between their calendar and our own. In this way, we have proved that 8,000 years the Sumerites who inhabited Babylonia were living in walled cities. One can only conjure how many centuries previous such cities had existed. Their inhabitants were not mere barbarians living within protecting walls. They were an educated and enlightened people. So far as written, his story goes, they were the first engineers, the first astronomers, the first mathematicians, the first financiers, the first people to have a written language. Mention has already been made of the irrigation systems which transformed the arid valley into an agricultural paradise. The remains of these canals can still be traced, although they are mostly filled with accumulated sand. Some of them were of such size that when empty of water a dozen horses could be ridden abreast along their bottoms. In size, they compare favorably with the largest canals in Colorado and Utah. In addition to irrigating the valley lands, Babylonian engineers completed another project of similar magnitude. By means of an elaborate drainage system, they reclaimed an immense area of swampland at the mouth of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers and put this also under cultivation. Herodotus, the Greek traveler and historian, visited Babylon while it was in its prime and has given us the only known description by an outsider. His writings give a graphic description of the city and some of the unusual customs of its people. He mentions the remarkable fertility of the soil and the bountiful harvest of wheat and barley which they produced. The glory of Babylon has faded, but its wisdom has been preserved for us. For this we are indebted to their form of records. In that distant day, the use of paper had not been invented. Yeah, because it was invented by the Egyptians. It was called papyri. Instead, they laboriously engraved their writings upon tablets of moist clay. When completed, these were baked and became hard tile. In size, they were about 6 by 8 inches and an inch in thickness, which also the 10 Commandments were made out of this, or the same way. These clay tablets, as they are commonly called, were used much as we use modern forms of writing. Upon them were engraved legend, poetry, history, transcripts of royal decrees, the laws of the land, tales of poverty, promissory notes, and even letters which were dispatched by messengers to distant cities. From these clay tablets were permitted an insight into the intimate personal affairs of the people. For example, one tablet, evidently from the records of a country storekeeper, relates that upon the given date, a certain named customer brought in a cow and exchanged it for 7 sacks of wheat, 3 being delivered at the time and the other 4 to await the customer's pleasure. Cool. So it was kind of like a bartering system, but it was a way they used, like that was like money to them. Safely buried in their wrecked cities, archaeologists have recovered entire libraries of these tablets, hundreds of thousands of them. One of the outstanding wonders of Babylon was the immense walls surrounding the city. The ancients ranked them with the Great Pyramid of Egypt as belonging to the seven wonders of the world. Queen Semiramis is accredited with having erected the first walls during early history of the city. Modern excavators have been able to find many traces of the original wall, nor is their exact height known. From mention made by earlier writers, it is estimated that they were about 50 to 60 feet high, faced on the outer side with burnt brick and further protected by a deep moat of water. The latter and more famous walls were started about 600 years before the time of Christ by King Nopalsar. Upon such gigantic scale did he plan the rebuilding. He did not live to see the work finished. This was left to his son, Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, we all know him because he's in the Bible, whose name is familiar in biblical history. The height and length of these later walls stagers belief. They are reported upon reliable authority to have been about 160 feet high and equivalent to the height of a modern 15-story office building. The total length is estimated as between 9 and 11 miles. So wide was the top that a 6-horse carriage could be driven around them. Of this tremendous structure, little now remains except portions of the foundation and the moat. In addition to the ravages of the elements, the Arabs completed the destruction by quarrying the brick for building purposes elsewhere. Wow. Against the walls of Babylon marched in turn the victorious armies of almost every conqueror of that age of wars of conquest. A host of kings laid siege to Babylon, but always in vain. Invading armies of that day were not to be considered lightly. Historians speak of such units as 10,000 horsemen, 25,000 chariots, 1,200 regiments of foot soldiers with thousands of men to the regiment. Often 2 or 3 years of preparation would be required to assemble war materials and depots of food along the proposed line of march. The city of Babylon was organized much like a modern city. There were streets and shops. Peddlers offered their wares through residential districts. Priests officiated in magnificent temples. Within the city was an inner enclosure for the royal palaces. The walls about this were said to have been higher than those about the city. The Babylonians were skilled in the arts. These included sculptures, painting, weaving, gold working, and manufacture of metal weapons and agricultural implements. Their jewelers created artistic jewelry. Many samples have been recovered from the graves of its wealthy citizens and are now on exhibit in the leading museums of the world. That's awesome, man. At the very early period, when the rest of the world was still hacking at trees with stone-headed axes or hunting and fighting with flint-pointed spears and arrows, the Babylonians were using axes, spears, and arrows with metal heads. The Babylonians were clever financiers and traders. So far as we know, they were the original inventors of money as a means of exchange, a promissory note, and written titles to property. Babylonians were never entered by hostile armies until about 540 years before the birth of Christ. Even then, the walls were not captured. The story of the fall of Babylon is most unusual. Cyrus, one of the great Cyrus, one of the great conquerors of the period, intended to attack the city and hoped to take its impregnable walls. Advisors of Nabonidus, the king of Babylon, persuaded him to go forth to meet Cyrus and give him battle without waiting for the city to be besieged. In the succeeding defeat to Babylonian army, it fled away from the city. Cyrus thereupon entered the open gates and took possession without resistance. Thereafter, the power and prestige of the city gradually waned until in the course of a few hundred years it was eventually abandoned, deserted, left for the winds and storms to level once again to the desert earth from which its grandeur had originally been built. Babylon had fallen, never to rise again, but its civilization owes much. The eons of time have crumbled to dust and proud walls of its temples, but the wisdom of Babylon endures. Money is the medium by which earthly success is measured. Money makes possible the enjoyment of the best earth affords. Money is plentiful for those who understand the simple laws which govern its acquisitions. Money is governed today by the same laws which controlled it when prosperous men thronged the streets of Babylon 6,000 years ago. Thank you guys for listening. This is the Only You podcast, and this is your boy Lo Jackson, and today I was doing the book review, The Richest Man in Babylon, and I find this book to be a great read because it gives you the basics of money, and it actually it's a wonderful story, you guys. You guys gotta run out and buy this. I mean, you can find it for 99 cents on Google's Play Store, and it's only 186 pages. The first principle was pay yourself first by saving 10% of your annual earnings. 2 is spend within your means. 3 is make your investments work for you long term to accumulate wealth. 4 is pitfalls of investment is overconfidence. 5, owning your primary home is a good investment. 6, retirement savings and insurance. 7, invest in yourself. 8, invest in what you know or seek smart advice. 9, lesson in borrowing and lending from the gold lender. And 10 is the budget rule, 10-70-20. Thank you guys again for listening. And we all go through struggles in life. And I don't know if you guys are struggling with any financial problems or things that you didn't see, unable to, or you know what I mean, like unable to pay medical bills or unable to pay car loans, unable to pay house bills. You know, everybody is suffering from something financially somewhere. I don't care how rich you are, whether you have so much money in the world and you don't know how to spend it, you're still suffering from having too much money. You know, we're all suffering from things that we need help with, and the only way to get help is by getting involved in society, opening your heart, looking towards somebody with intelligence, or actually getting more intelligent yourself by reading books like this or venturing out and listening to podcasts like mine. When we subject ourselves to the social norm, we actually help our minds become more well-rounded and more understandable, and we become people who other people love to be around, and we are respected and honored, you know. But today I was doing the book review, The Richest Man in Babylon, because I think finances are an important part of your mental health as well, because a lot of us turn to depression, turn to drinking, turn to, you know, smoking marijuana, or whatever things that we do to ourselves, or we overeat. You know, there's a lot of things that we do to ourselves that are spurred from financial instability. And once we learn that money is a tool and not an enemy, I think we begin to understand the way we apply it to our lives, and then we're able to be a lot more financially successful in all the areas of mental health and our lives in general. And thank you guys for listening. Please follow me. Please share me. And feel free to email me. My email is onlyyoupodcast2022@gmail. Thank you so much. Until next time, it's your boy Lo Jackson. It's the Only You Podcast.